Hello everyone, welcome to another Coding and Philosophy episode. I'm here with Tri.
And I'm here with Yuho, and along that we have a lovely guest with us today.
A lovely guest who made some coffee for us. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
It's Reyer.
Thanks a lot for having me here.
The studio audience goes wild, yes. Yeah. So, we decided to have Reyer in this episode because we wanted to have the topic is going to be about integrating your shadow.
Integrating the shadow.
Or, in other words, becoming able to defeat evil, So,
I was about to expand a little bit, but later is that it's not just about being evil when you integrate the shadow, but we can start with that first.
Yeah.
Because I think we'd like to invite Reyer because he has real life experiences in incorporating the shadow to help him move forward his life.
Yeah. So, I want to ask about that. Like, you were, from what you've told me, that's what I understand, you were working in UK, and it was a pretty shady, pretty competitive environment, and you saw a lot of people playing power games, and you kind of had to, you weren't like them, but you had to fit in. So that's why you started to play, not play power games, but just, play power games, but more being aware of what you're doing,
Yeah. Okay, let's make some clarification. Yeah, well, I was working in the UK for a while in a fintech corporate. Not shady, because the shady is a word that has very bad connotations, but I would say mega competitive and super rough environment. Everything comes down to environment. More than power plays, because of course, there are some limitations and there is some sense of decency. It was more about dealing with office politics, especially at that level. When you are working with big companies with hundreds and thousands of people, of course everything comes down to culture, and culture is accompanied with politics, and you need to you need to face that every day. That office politics, you need to learn how to navigate through that environment. You need to start there are things that previously you thought you would never do it because you have certain ways of behave, but somehow the environment pushes you to certain actions that make you survive, because you are not only competing with your company's competitors, but also inside. You have teammates, you have KPIs, you have deliverables to give. Especially when you arrive to those kind of environment straight from the university, when everything is more ABC, there is the reality is totally different, and you start losing that naivete or not being that genuine, because you need to survive a bit of the Shark Tank.
Yeah, you start to see the power games which people are playing, and you also see them thriving. I think a misconception we have is that people who play these power games are, they're actually not doing that. It's somehow bad, but no, they are, psychopaths, for example, are occupying really powerful positions because they're driven by power more than, people who are not. And it also, their lack of sympathy allows them to behave in a ways which is, business and logic, or what is bad for business in a way is being logical, because let's put it this way.
What kind of business is that? Well, if you're logical, you're good with money.
Yeah, but just saying in general, if you logic and business, or logic and emotion are rival enemies in a way, and people who are rational and logical thrive in business, and what gets into way of being logical is your emotions, right? So that's what I'm saying basically. But about cutting off your naivety. The same thing which happened to me when I read the 48 Laws of Power book, is how before reading it I felt I was a lot more naive when it came to power. I felt that people don't play that many power games. It's just a thing that how would you put it? Like people generally. Okay, let's put it this way. How it made me realize how people hide their negative emotions, right? And a lot of negative emotions are hidden. For example, let's take the concept of jealousy, right? Jealousy is one of the, I don't know, top 5 most common emotions that people feel, or like it's on the list, let's say. But how many people have you heard that they confess that, oh, I'm jealous? People don't admit that to themselves, let alone other people. They hide it, they mask it somehow. So let's say there's someone who you're jealous of, and I start speaking highly of them. Well, you're gonna say, oh, well, they're not that great, they're that, and they're this and that. You're hiding the emotion of jealousy in a way, but you're just taking it out in like by defacing or kind of speaking negatively.
I mean, like totally legit and totally true. I think it comes more like for the type with the type of society we are living under. Like nowadays, I mean, everything is like needs to be beautiful. Everything is positive. Like kind of we have been neglecting somehow when it comes to the true human nature. I mean, we all have all those feelings. I mean, like negatives and the positives, to in certain degrees, in different intensities. But now, I mean, we live in a society that, okay, hey, these are the standards of kind of a functioning human being, that like those, showing or confessing those type of emotions, like kind of won't make you fit to operate in the society. That's why, like, people are just
confessing, like what type of emotions?
Like, for instance, now that you are talking jealousy, like people won't be going straight away saying, hey, yeah, I'm jealous, and being super honest. First, like, they have the inner battle with themselves. I mean, the jealousy is a very powerful feeling that is driving them, but kind of there is this rational side of them that kind of tries to cover or put that under the carpet. Okay, yeah, no, and then we start kind of making like we start justifying ourselves, like, okay, hey, like kind of offloading to the outside, like the reasons why our jealousy is legit. Let's say in this case, like undermining the let's say the other person who's achieving something. It's like, okay, well, it's not that fine. No. It's kind of we ourselves making excuses for our own jealousy, like in that sense, because kind of we still need to believe ourselves and give that impression towards others that, hey, yeah, well, I am operating in the standards of that the society is asking me, the parameter of my behavior that matches the behavior that it is expected from me. That let's say, at least like in the Western society, it's like, okay, well, like everything is good, empathy, like no jealousy, like optimism, blah 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 blah. But yeah, kind of inside of us, of course, like we are going through all those positive and negative emotions and behaviors. Yes.
So what it sounds to me is that when an individual is operating in a society, that individual having to subject himself from the expectation from the society, and a set of expectation is that you should have the control or even suppress your negative emotion, and to conform with that, like you have to portray you have to behave in a certain way, to act in a certain way, and then also to express your emotion in a certain way, so that you become accepted in this community. And the individual also wanting to fit in the society, also agree to those kind of conforming and expectation from the society, and therefore, as a result, a part of the emotion is also kind of like negotiated by the rational by their rational thinking, or even completely suppress and ignore.
Yeah, and there's a very interesting point that leads me, to think like, okay, hey, like we're still living under a kind of a social contract with a certain type of, rules, laws, and, and normatives, that makes things functioning. Then it's kind of somehow we need to give up kind of that kind of freedom that we have as a species, in order to feel those emotions, to have all those actions, that behavior, in order to be a
collective.
Yeah, in a collective, because in the end, we are collective species. Yeah, because it's everything. That's the only. Sorry for.
No. Go ahead. Finish your point.
Yeah. Like we only feel safe when we are in a collective. I mean, obvious. And
there's strength in numbers.
Makes us survive.
Yeah.
If together, if strong.
Exactly. Indeed.
But also, I heard a quote that there's no use being smart in a room full of idiots, or there's no room being sane in a room full of crazies. So we assimilate to people because that also, it's a power play, or it's like it gives us power of that within that group, because even though you are acting like them, playing their game basically, but you're still retaining this, let's say, from outside looking in. You're not being them just for you're not automatic. You're not automatically behaving up them. You're kind of looking at from the outside looking in a way. So, yeah. And I also heard a quote, there's a fly here which annoys me. I heard a quote which is, men are more willing to repay for a wound inflicted on them than they are for kindness. And the reason is because gratitude is a burden and taking revenge is a pleasure. So I want to open a new level of discussion, which is that how I believe there's a real strength in anger and in hatred and in all these negative emotions which you were mentioning. And like I said, if there is a situation where, let's say, okay, you're my friend, you're both my friends, and Reyer, I try to hit on a girl in a club, and Reyer takes that away from me. Not in any, he's not attempting to do that, but just the way he kind of is. The girl's more interested in him. Then I would be mad, obviously, but I recognize how silly my madness anger is, because like women are proper, they are things with, like they're people with feelings and emotions. So why would I be angry at a man? There's no concept of stealing a girl, you know what I mean?
So first of all, let's make it clear, like it can happen also the other way around.
But my point is basically, if that happens, it's basically you inflict a wound, even if you don't want to, but it's a full wound inflicted on me, and then I'm motivated, I want to put you in that same situation. That is like taking revenge. But let's say Tree gave me a gift, I'm not gonna be the gift. I'm gonna feel obligated to repay him, but that obligation will be overtaken by this let's say not anger. It's not even anger. It's just like, well, let's say negative emotion,
bitterness.
Bitterness, whatever. But there's strength in that if you just learn how to utilize it.
Exactly, and now we are getting into a very a key point, especially with the topic we are handling, that of integrating your own shadow, is that emotions, I mean, they have different aspects, different intensities. Like there are different kind of shades of gray when it comes to emotions. The real key to really integrating your shadows is measuring the how to control those kind of negative emotions, or recognizing the intensity of those, because one thing is hatred, which is somehow different than bitterness. I mean, hatred, and then also all those kind of supposedly psychopathic negative emotions that leads you to actions like killing, like some other horrible actions that a human being can have. Yeah, like kind of also like they have lesser degrees, let's say, but when we comes to, let's say, bitterness, yeah, you are bitter at that other person because of what happened, a trade-off, but in the end it doesn't lead you to an action that will cause harm on the other person.
Yeah, it's not about, like, I don't believe in the idea of controlling your emotions, meaning controlling in a way where you feel an emotion, you need to stuff it out and stop it. But you should just express your emotions in healthy ways. You can express them in like killing and this, like doing bad activities, but you can also express them like the way I code is that I get really upset and I just listen to really aggressive music and I just take it out on the problem that I'm trying to like fix, the code problem or something. So it's like there's healthy ways to express them.
Yeah, I mean, you need to express them that they are necessary, and also, I mean, you need to measure somehow the ways, to be aware of what kind of intensity you are feeling in that right moment. It's a very interesting thing what you said. That, okay, you cannot control the emotions. Actually, yeah, that's actually like true. Like, because I mean, unexpressed emotions and feelings, they come back later in a nastier and uglier way.
I mean, you're gonna express them some way. Yeah. It's like you can't. It's energy inside of. Like I look at it, it's energy generated inside of you, and it needs to get out
one way or another.
Yeah, especially we men, because we still have big challenges when it comes to expressing emotions and feelings. Okay, and this is just only my personal opinion. I mean, part of the problem comes that, okay, like the other gender kind of undermine those emotions, and big part of that responsibility is also from us, that we are just learning how to express those. But anyways, the key, to integrate your shadow and real power is when you do exactly that. How to express them, you take them out, you recognize them, and then you put the right measure on it. I mean, you don't go under, you don't underestimate them, but also you don't go over, as all the beautiful things in life. I mean, you don't overuse them, but you don't also like underuse them.
Like, what would be do you have an example of overusing or underusing?
Like for instance, let's say, okay, let's go a little bit on the other side of the spectrum. Let's say like something more positive, like expressing love and like, care and
whatever love is.
Yeah. But it has different facets.
Yes.
I mean, if you are just too much, I mean, and this is obviously just my take on this. I mean, it can get overwhelming, especially towards the other person that you are showing love. Like, let's say, for instance, with Tree, let's say, like, hey, I just love you so much. And then I'm just touching you and hugging you all the time. Yeah, at some point, at first it's going to be, you kind of feel, oh, this is nice. But then if I constantly just almost harass you in that sense, you will be, overwhelmed.
Will be overwhelmed. Well, especially when love, it's like, it's a social contract, because it comes from two sides. There meets two sides on this emotional connection, right? And
you need to enter contract renegotiations in that situation.
How does incorporate the shadow comes into here? For example, I am rather more or less unconscious about that emotion compared to the other party. Then the way I can integrate the self, not just the shadow, is that make myself more whole, more integrated. That means I need to open myself in that level of emotion as well, because I'm less conscious in terms of that. Let's take our example of love. The other party may express that level of consciousness, love to me, but I cannot reciprocate the same because I'm unconscious. And in order for that interplay can be sustainable in the future, that part of me needs to become more conscious, or even to the point of equals in strength and intensity to them. I would like to relate this image to more work context. I would say that your colleagues are portraying the game of the office, and as a newcomer, you might be unaware of that, still unconscious about that game. You hold a certain kind of ignorance and naivety being in that environment. But if you want to participate in that game in the future, then you have to call forth something unconscious inside you. You call forth to it into your awareness and consciousness to the same intensity, so that you can be among the players to play that game.
Exactly. And here is another variable that comes into play when it comes to integrating your shadow. It's like you don't, not only that you need to be aware of yourself and also kind of measuring the intensity of, let's say, of your emotions and your actions, but also being aware of the other person. Let's say if your work colleague that, doesn't have the same way of expressing the same emotion or the same reciprocity towards the emotions you are feeling in that particular moment, you really need to, get over yourself and look at the other person as well. Like, okay, hey, if I approach this person in the office with this intensity, that person is gonna be super overwhelmed, and then it's gonna create misconfusion, mistrust. Then the whole relationship is gonna become a little bit toxic in a sense.
But I feel it's the responsibility of the person who gets these emotions. Let's say you behave in a certain way and it makes me, feel a certain way which I don't like. Then I would say it's my responsibility to bring it up. And I think that's the most common problem, is that we don't address these situations, and we don't we just feel a feeling, but we never analyze it, and where does it come from, and we don't address it in the appropriate way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
well, I just have to briefly mention that I find guilty because I bombard myself into the rat race of life, and I just sometimes neglect the fact that I need to spend some time to reflect about it. It's just that life is a wave, and sometimes I feel like I go along the ride too much.
Exactly. You're not being in the driver's seat, you're just being in the wagon.
In the wagon, but I still like to ride along.
That's well.
Yeah.
You need to know your timing then. Yeah. But back to your point, I think we are coming into a very interesting terrain. Yes, definitely. The other person as well needs to also kind of, express those, those emotions that they feel when, something is, from the other person kind of, it feels not right for them. And now here the key is communication. And for instance, when it comes to office politics, and also like now we gotta extrapolate it even more when it comes to code. Communication is a very powerful tool, and that can help you to kind of survive those environments, because sometimes, of course, it's my responsibility to be aware of, what you like and what you don't like, but also I'm not in your mind, so also, it's your responsibility to speak out. And then, knowing how to speak to certain departments, to certain people, or which tone to use in different situations is what will let you through the whole chaos.
Putting on different masks, like, okay, you're this type of a person, I need to put on a mask to kind of deal with you. You know what I mean? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, not mask, but you need to be versatile with your communication skills. And now, actually, we have become especially the people who work in tech, we just got to focus on technical stuff, on technical lingo, and not much on the elaboration of the language. Kind of, we have forgotten, literature, poetry, narrative, biographies affect our construction of the language, and that can, give us the tools to, of course, to play the game of face politics. And when it comes to, let's say, when we are coding, we start becoming more creative and more concise when it comes to writing our programs, our functions, etc., etc., etc. Yeah.
If you're a good programmer, your code can be like a story.
Yeah, exactly. Everything is a story.
Yeah, I mean, for example, there's a programming paradigm called declarative, which means you don't have to specify the implementation of every details, but you abstract the implementation into a function and name the function, and then just piece together the function so that it all reading the code almost as if you're telling the story.
Yeah. Okay. And it's the same. I think I kind of gotta try to put things clear and together, because I have the feeling that I'm derailing a bit, so that the audience doesn't get mixed up. Yeah, of course, knowing your communication style and really knowing how to use it. I mean, when it comes to the part of code, yes, everything gets more concise, everything gets more relatable, and it can be replicated. When it comes to the human side, it lets you get what you need from every person in a company. Let's say when you go to the development department to ask for something, those guys, you need to be more straightforward, more technical, more, but of course kind of trying to build a link and with them in that sense. But let's say when you come to marketing, which kind of they express and they communicate themselves in a different way, you need kind of also to adapt your communications and to know how to approach them, and what are the words that will get you the things that you need from, let's say in this case, the marketing department. Yeah, it's a bit of that, not one size fits all. Kind of, you really need to know how to kind of adapt your communication and work, pay attention to it, because it's something that we have forgotten completely. We just got super stuck into the technical side, but kind of after all, everything is human input, and communication is kind of the representation of humanity. So we need to kind of get back to it, and that's also kind of a big milestone into integrating your shadow. Also, how you speak to yourself, especially when facing those different emotions. This is a kind of a big thing. What's your inner dialogue?
Yes,
especially when
it's almost this way. It's synonymous as the way you perceive yourself. In your internal dialogue, the way you speak to yourself, exactly how you perceive yourself. Would it be like a positive image? You see yourself as someone who can make it. Kind of language is communication.
Exactly. What narrative you build about yourself.
But I also think there's a big difference in the way, you can have any thoughts you want, but it's your actions that define you, like Spider-Man. So it doesn't really, the inner dialogue doesn't really matter in my eyes. It's just what you do. Because we all have inner dialogue, which is not the best, the most conductive to whatever we're trying to accomplish. In a way, it's like your little demon. I think in the Christianity, that everyone has a demon inside of them, or what is there? Anyways, I think that's a very good metaphor for these negative and intrusive thoughts, and there's negativity that is we're all kind of be cursed with. And we have to overcome it. and some days are harder than others in a way. So like
it's hard to manage. It's always an internal struggle.
And I would like to comment or a little bit expand on your saying that you find it more important what we do, at least from my anecdotes. What I do stem from my within. So for example, in my brain there are multiple voices or discussions going on. One of the discussion is coming from the little demon and the little belittling and criticism. But it also voices that encouraging and exploratory and intriguing, almost like Hermes in Greek. They're also very powerful, thunderous like Thor. We say we can solve it with a hammer and we just smash it. And my action is actually to grab a voice and trust it. And that voice, where does it come from? It's come from maybe within. It's like a prototype, like a pool of the depth in my psyche, the self. And the self, it's the pool, and it nested very deep under the pool. It may be the shadow. Sometimes there will be darkest voice from the shadow just spring up. I do catch sights of it, but of course sometimes I would not like to grab it because it's so dark, it's so twisted.
But like what you're describing, these different voices, like I think it's tough to, or it's a challenge to recognize which voice, which words to this, or who is voicing this out, because the inner dialogue, it's sometimes you get a bad feeling about something and you don't even know why, but being able to kind of break down that why is it that I believe in this, and being able to, is this my the devil that is saying that you can't do this, or is this actually I don't know, the wise sage inside of you who kind of is telling you something that you need to telling you advice or telling you to better yourself. You know what I mean? Is it self-doubt, or is it really am I being logical with like being,
or even a trickster? Because a trickster will say something it seems like you may agree with, but it's tricking you. Your inner dialogue is
and from there stems a lot of people who have this kind of imposter syndrome, especially when we are coded, because I've been in that position. Okay, like you're stuck in a problem, you start thinking, crap, like I don't know what I'm doing this, I really suck on this, like there is this trickster like telling you. We're 30 minutes in, or 33 minutes. I think we're gonna make 2 parts.
Let's do this.
Okay.
So let's say goodbye for the part 1 and see you on the part 2. So see you guys, bye.